Welcome to Terra Talks, where we talk about all things real estate. In each episode, we'll tackle current trends and topics of interest, both locally and regionally. However or wherever you decide to tune in, you're not going to want to miss this.
Hi, my name's Betty. I'm a real estate agent with Terra, and I specialize in sales and rentals in the residential and commercial sectors. I've been working in the industry for over 20 years and really enjoy my job most days. One of the things that I love about Terra is the fact that we gather and share information and knowledge on the market, which helps our clients make informed decisions about their next move in the real estate sector.
Hi, my name's Leslie. I'm a senior facility manager for Terra Caribbean. I have been with Terra for 5 years, but I do come with 30 years experience in facilities management. Yes, I did start young, it has to be said. I love my job. It's different every single day. I manage the Norman Centre, and I have an overview of the walk at Welch's and 2 commercial buildings at Warren's.
So we're here today to share information on the retail industry in Barbados. We're going to touch on everything from retail rates in the sector to retail hotspots, how COVID has impacted the industry, and the future of the industry itself.
Something for everyone, tenants, landlords, and shoppers.
Yes. So let's start with the basics. I'll tell you a little bit about retail rates and how they're made up. When you see a retail rate advertised, it's typically just the monthly rate, and it does not include the service charge or the VAT. So, and retail rates are usually based on a price per square foot per annum. You really do need to take into account the cost of the service charge, and that varies quite significantly depending on where you're located, and would be an important thing to factor in when you're budgeting on a monthly basis.
Without a doubt. Service charges, you really do have to be careful. But let's talk about what a service charge is. A service charge is fundamentally the operational cost for the building, and it's split between the tenants on a per square footage basis. But your service charge will invariably involve security, cleaning, waste management, lots of preventative maintenance, so air conditioning servicing, elevators, escalators, generators, pest control, the list goes on and on. But the biggest thing that I would advise anyone to check on is what is actually included in your CAM charge. Does it include utilities? Because very often a landlord will have it separate. So make sure when you're paying your CAM charge or your service charge, are your utilities included? Because that sometimes happens again on a square footage basis, or in fact, is it metered so that you have to pay directly, or sometimes it will come into a bulk meter and then the facility manager will calculate what your electricity costs, but it can make a huge difference to your monthly bill for sure.
There are varying types of retail space available. There's everything from warehouse space, which would typically be for a bulk retailer like Cost You Less or Price Smart. There would be restaurant space, and then there would be typical retail space. Retail space tends to come fitted out very basically. So it leaves the responsibility on the tenant to fit it out and finish it off and really bring it up to brand standards, which can be quite a high cost. And Leslie will tell you a little bit more about that.
I think with fit-out costs, where again we have to be very careful, is never underestimate how much your fit-out costs are going to be. And particularly, do not forget about time. To me, time is key critical. People go into the mall, they want to get into their store and get it all going, and they forget to think about maybe the logistics of it. So, for example, particularly if you're in a common area mall, so like the Norman Centre or Bridgetown duty free, it will be highly unlikely that anyone will allow you to do fit out during operational hours.
Right, because that's when you've got all of your
absolutely,
clients around and all of that.
Noise travels like nobody's business odour as well. And top tip, don't let a contractor kid you that he's got zero VOC paint, because mark my words, he's got thinners there somewhere, okay? So you have to keep a real eye on that. So no smells, no noise. And if you can think of a contractor walking through a busy shopping mall with 8 feet by 4 feet gypsum boards, not recommended. So bear in mind that you're not going to be in there with your contractor all day. It's going to be tight, because you can only work outside your operational hours. And dare I say the COVID word, but with our curfew now at the minute, that's even shorter.
Oh yeah, that's true.
So it's very limited at the moment.
Yeah. So when choosing the perfect spot for retail, tenants typically consider some pretty standard things. One of them would be the location and the accessibility for their clients. So for example, if you have clients that typically arrive by foot, how close are the bus stops, etc.? If people are coming by a car, how close are they to highways? How centrally located? Is there good parking? Perhaps you're a retailer that focuses on the tourist sector. Are you close to hotels? Another thing that's important as well is the mix of neighboring tenants, and do they complement what you do, or are they too heavily competitive with what you do? Retail hotspot locations include similar elements, such as a strong anchor tenant, and then a mix of convenience and a mix of tenants who cater to similar target markets. An example of that would be the Walk at Welch's, which has anchor tenants like Chefette and Cost You Less, and then it has a mix of middle market restaurants and retailers. You've got good parking and good accessibility and good visibility. Sheraton, which is one of the most popular malls on the island, they have a number of anchor tenants, including Massey, Do It Best, and Courts. And then they've got such a range of other retailers within the mall and restaurants as well. Millhouse and Home, I think, and the Avenue have really come on in recent years, where they targeted initially on just furniture and bath providers, but in more recent times they offer quite a lot of services and restaurants and things like that that cater to women. So it's become a bit of a destination. You've got yoga, you've got wine, you've got all of that, so it can kind of be a day out for the target market. Anywhere else that comes to mind, Leslie?
Not so much places that come to mind, but I think we should touch too on the difference between rents when you're looking at either ground floor or first floor properties. Bet you don't forget the Lime Grove Lifestyle Centre. Fabulous place.
Yes, for sure. I actually really enjoy going there. Now let's talk about retail rental ranges. So restaurant space, for example, we typically see rates around $25 to $50 dollars per square foot per annum. Warehouse bulk space, we actually have rates as low as $8 per square foot per annum. This is large spaces, 12,000 square foot and higher, and up to about $16 per square foot per annum in today's market. And then typical retail space is from about $30 per square foot per annum up to about $60. But in some of the prime spots, we see rates of $100 plus per square foot per annum. Then off-ground space typically commands a lower rate.
So let's talk about the difference between ground floor and first floor. I have not yet, and I've been there for 5 years, I have not yet had one person come into the Norman Centre and ask to see first floor space. They always come in and ask about the ground floor space. But once I've got you, that's it, you're going to look at everything anyway, so it doesn't matter. But for sure, I would really recommend that if you are looking at space, please don't disregard the first floor, because it can offer a multitude of benefits for you. Number one, it's going to be cheaper, for sure. Number two, you're going to be able to negotiate even better on first floor space than ground floor space. But let's take the financials out of it. Very often you'll find in a mall that they may have designed it in such a way that you'll be attracted to the first floor or a higher floor anyway. Certainly at the Norman Centre, our escalator is positioned at the entrance, and you just don't even think about it. You automatically get on the escalator, you go up to the first floor, you stroll around, and then you come back.
It invites you in, doesn't
Indeed it does. Indeed it does. And then also once you're up there, it's just, I can't tell you, it's just fabulous. If you haven't been, go. It's amazing. The whole of the food court is glass all along the front. So you're looking out over Broad Street, you're looking out over the Careenage, Hero Square, Independence Square, and those fabulous gardens. The name escapes me now. Is it Freedom Park Gardens that we're just developing that? I mean, it's just incredible. So that actually genuinely makes the ambience on the first floor just as nice as the ground. And it's very similar if you go into Bridgetown Duty Free, which used to be Cave Shepherd. Again, they've done a very similar thing where it's very inviting. Lanterns, likewise, you've got the two different areas, and the first floor is no less scenic than the ground floor. So please don't disregard the first floor or any upper floors, because it can be good for your business, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the food courts, they really do bring people upstairs, don't they?
Yeah, for sure.
And then you've got some exciting stuff upstairs of Norman Centre now as well that would bring people up. So that's good to know. And how has retail been impacted by COVID? I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that the sector has really been negatively impacted and has transformed. It suffered a major blow. The industry, we had the lockdown restrictions, social distancing, and the tough financial situation many of us face, which has led to the change in goods and services that we consume and how we consume them. Some areas of retail have obviously fared worse than others. So, for example, if I'm a retailer and I was focusing on the tourism sector or the cruise ship sector, unfortunately, I haven't had any customers really, especially in the initial stages. So some retailers have had to close, and then others have really had to pivot. And some of them have moved away from the focus on bricks and mortar, and they're doing much more online than ever before. So it's been a complete digital transformation. We're seeing that many traditional large users of retail space, like banks, for example, they're shrinking their needs for space now. So lots of space is coming available. Obviously, places like grocery shopping they're doing a lot of online as well. And this has led to higher vacancy rates, with spaces coming available even in some of the really popular spots like Sheraton or The Walk or Lanterns. In order to combat this, we've found that landlords have had to be more creative and flexible in their rates in order to try and really keep their existing retailers on hand, and so they can survive this storm.
I think that's key critical for me. To get over this, and we must go over this COVID thing, please. I think what we really need is a genuine partnership. You need a partnership between the landlord and the tenant, and maybe to understand what that partnership can be, we need to understand about costs. When we were in our first lockdown, banks and loan institutions were offering moratoriums on all of their lending. And so the majority, if not all of the landlords, were giving genuine concessions to the tenants, 100% rent concession, 50% rent concession. They could do that because they had it to give. The second time round, though, the actual concessions weren't there. So, your business is your store. The landlord's business is the entire mall. So if he still has all of his costs to bear, or a majority of his costs to bear, he can't give it to you. But I think I'm always a great one for information. Information is key. So please don't think that because the front door is closed, that mall isn't costing anything to run. Clearly, you've still got your mortgage or your loan if you have one. I mean, if not, you don't leave the building empty. You still have to run your air conditioning. You still have to do your different servicing on the building or the property.
Maintain it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even without that, let's face it, you've got to pay your land tax, you've got to pay your insurance. So there's still costs there to look out for. And certainly for us as facility managers, as Terra facility managers, we were classed as essential service during both lockdowns, and we had our little passes, and we went in there and checked the buildings and made sure that everything was right, and if it wasn't right, put it right. That's your job after all. But it's just to try and share with everyone that whilst you might see a building closed, things are still going on behind the closed doors, and that comes with a cost, no matter how careful you are. So if the landlord isn't getting any sort of concession, that's probably why he's not passing it on to the tenant. So I totally get why we're very nervous about any other lockdowns. It just cripples the economy, to be honest. So, but yeah, there's always a cost.
Yeah, I think that your point about communication is so important. The tenant can share where they're at, the landlord can share that where they're at,
correct,
and hopefully the two can meet in between, and at least that way things can hold on until better times are ahead.
Because when you're under a lot of pressure, you kind of change slightly, don't you? You get quite, this is mine. I need everything that's going to keep me going. But it might be that partnership that actually helps at the end of the day. Because that's all we're doing. We're all just hanging on. For these better times that are definitely coming. No two ways about it.
Yeah. Well, that's a good lead in to looking forward. Where is this whole industry going? And there's actually been some exciting stuff that's taken place as a result of COVID, I think. Retailers some of them have just been incredibly nimble, as I mentioned earlier, and consumers are benefiting from more convenient ways to do business. A good example of this, of course, is the local fast food giant Chefette. And I remember it well because my kids were so upset when it was closed, and they were dying to be involved with the day one of reopening. And I think that there were a lot of people in Barbados that felt the same.
Yeah, close the island.
Yeah, and instead of doing, just continuing business the way they'd always done, they added their delivery service. They added the, what do you call it? The
curbside?
Curbside, yes. I did the curbside on day one. So it meant that on that first day, they were able to cater to so many different clients. There was lots of pent-up demand, and I find that actually there have been brand ambassadors that have emerged out of this, and Chefette always gets mentioned now. We've had Rihanna mentioning Chefette, we've had Drake mentioning Chefette, and then we have some local celebrities mentioning Chefette and the preparation for its reopening. So that's quite exciting. Almost all local grocery stores are doing online ordering and delivery, which I think many of us can admit saves a lot of time and is really convenient, and we'll probably never go back to going to the supermarket all the time. I still personally love going to the supermarket because then I eat something different in my house. Yeah. But it is nice on those busy weeks to be able to order online and have it delivered. There's also local entrepreneurs who have started doing delivery services. So you can now order food from different restaurants online, and it gets delivered and all of that. One of the things that I think is really interesting is the amount of local artisans that have emerged. You go to some of these markets now, and the quality of goods is just fantastic. I have a friend who has been in the jewelry making industry for years, and she actually said that last Christmas was her best Christmas ever, because she basically upped her game in terms of what she was offering, and it coincided with a time when Bajans are feeling it, and we're not traveling as we used to before and going to shop in Miami. And we also want to support local. So she had the best Christmas yet. I mean, that's just fantastic. And I hope that we see a lot of people doing that this Christmas as well, where we're supporting local as opposed to buying from overseas, because I think it's really, really important. So I think it's exciting to see how people are responding and taking things to the next level. Is it just me, or are there more roadside vegetable vendors and coconut vendors on the side of the road?
Everywhere.
Like everywhere, because no one wants to go to the supermarket now and stand in line and all of that. And how wonderful, you're interacting with locals and helping them. So that's really nice. And I also find that though overall covers are down in restaurants, you're seeing more locals in restaurants. So obviously we haven't had our wonderful cadumant to spend our money on, but I think people are still, they want to go out, they want to do things, so they're going to restaurants and supporting restaurants, which I think is really wonderful. And I also find, to be honest with you, the service in restaurants has come back up to this really great level where everybody's just so happy to have a job and happy to be serving. And I just find it's back up at that wonderful, really personal level.
This is positivity here. I guess, talking about the future, I mean, for me, there's my immediate future, and there's a wee bit further along the line, but not too far, please, when I get to that. I'm just so delighted to say that, and I'm sorry to keep talking about the Norman Centre, but it's my baby. We're welcoming Pandora.
That is exciting, I have to admit.
Love it. Pandora is opening up their flagship store in the Norman Centre on November the 1st, so that will just be terrific. I was also very blessed to meet a tenant maybe 2 or 3 years ago who then came back to us. She was based in Cave Shepherd. She's called Tasha's Wonderland. You guys will know it as the big toy store that was in Cave Shepherd. And then at Christmas time, all the sparkly stuff for Christmas. And Tasha's Wonderland came to us, middle of this year. So that was fantastic for me. And a slightly sad story, but it's still positive. You might recall the Colonnade had a fire. I mean, it was just awful. Anyway, they had their fire, which was a terrible thing. But from my perspective, I was able to offer a store called Beyond Surf that's now open, a store called Exotica Makeup that's halfway through its fit out.
They're a great store, actually.
Yeah. And their fit out's fabulous. Anyway, and then another store called InStyle Couture that does children's clothing, and they'll be with us from November the 1st. So for me, I felt it was lovely that we could offer that business continuity for them.
Exactly, rather than losing them completely from Broad Street.
Exactly. So it was a sad thing, but a nice thing. And now let's look to slightly more of a distant future, but not too distant, please, because I want to keep the momentum going. I want to talk about Bridgetown. Bridgetown rejuvenated, Bridgetown reinvented, Bridgetown whatever, it doesn't matter. It's all about bringing Bridgetown back to what it was. And I know this has been talked about for eons, but there's a real change in the atmosphere. There's no two ways about it. We've done surveys ourselves at Terra, but we know that if you bring back people to live into an environment, that it will bring back life to your town. Now, it might be, you may have gathered from the accent that I'm not from Barbados, it might be because I wasn't brought up here that I love the town, because there's so many people don't seem to like town much. I love it. I think it's fabulous. I think it's got history. I think it's got architecture. You've got water. You've got beaches. For heaven's sake, what's there not to like? But I do appreciate it in a way, because Glasgow was my city in Scotland. That was my local city, and that went from slums to being a city of culture. So for me, when someone says to me, "Can we bring back Bridgetown? Can Bridgetown be a hub for living and eating and everything that you would want your lifestyle to be," then wholeheartedly I'm saying yes, and I've got my hands up to say I'm happy to help in any way that I can. The other side to that, and why I'm sharing it with you today, if I were a landowner or a landlord, I would be holding on as best I can to what I've got in Bridgetown, because that piece of land or that building, It could be the perfect spot for a multi-use building. You could maybe convert something into a multi-use building. Or it could be the perfect piece of land to build something. So for me, I just think landlords, hang on, because I think better times are genuinely coming.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some really exciting plans for Carlisle Bay in the future, and there's always lots of talk about Hyatt and where the Waterfront Cafe was, having some beautiful residential and hotel there, and that's going to feed traffic into Bridgetown, which is going to be fantastic. And there are so many historic buildings and so much that we could leverage on. So now's not the time to sell in Bridgetown. I agree with you 100%. Retail, I think, certainly will have changed as a result of COVID. Everybody's so much more, germ sensitive. We don't like to use touch screens. Even when I go to the bank teller now and I use my touch screen, I think, I need to wash my hands and all of that. But I do feel like, and you don't want to go to when they have little sampling stations. I'm a bit funny about that now, buffets. People don't like buffets anymore because of it. So there's lots of changes, but I think, we have to look for opportunities within it, because online is great, but it really doesn't give you the experience that so many people crave for in terms of retail.
I agree. Partly, touching on the cleanliness front, I guess, first. That's a very important part of Terra Facilities Management's role. We have to make sure that all of our COVID-19 protocols are in place, because that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that you feel safe. You're going to
and comfortable
come into a nice, clean environment. And if that means that I have to put 3 security officers with temperature guns and hand sanitizer and zap you, whether you're shopping in the Norman Centre or just walking through, then so be it. That's what I'm going to do. So certainly, cleanliness and a comfortable environment are really, really important. Just picking up on your online shopping, again, I totally agree with you. I did do online grocery shopping here for the first time because of COVID. I've always paid my bills online, I guess. But I think there is always going to be a need for social activity. I honestly believe that, it's not up to me actually, studies galore have proved it. We are very social animals. We don't fare well when we're kept in a box, and we don't have any interaction. I know certainly if I go back to maybe the 90s in London, we did lots of downsizing. We, hot desking, all that sort of stuff. But the studies showed that we still wanted to go into the office, maybe once or twice a week. In fact, we had this bizarre name. I'm sure it was called buddy building or something equally crazy. But it was true. People liked shopping. They liked working at home, but they had to go into the office to get that sort of camaraderie. And I think there's a certain element of that still in the retail market. I think, you buy a dress online, you can't feel the quality of the fabric. You don't know how it's going to fit you properly. The perfume, you can't smell the perfume. So for me, there's a similar situation in the retail market. If you order online, you can't feel the quality of that fabric. You can't see the fit of the dress. You can't smell the fragrance of the perfume. So for me, there'll always be room for shopping. But even before COVID, again, all the sort of buzz things where, you had to make your shopping mall experiential. Certainly for me, I know I introduced an art gallery into the Norman Centre, partnered with allied artists, fabulous studio, and we change the art gallery every 4 to 6 weeks. And I also have the Caribbean Wax Museum there. I have to say, mostly I guess for tourists. We don't seem to have much of an appetite for that here. School children, great, because it's educational. So I guess I sort of dabbled with that when I first came here. But there's, without a doubt, you want your day out to be a day out. So you want to be able your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner, healthy options, lots of healthy options. You know, and I guess if you're lucky enough to have the opportunity, you know, you even have a cinema, and so you're going from day, afternoon into night. So I think there will always be that need in us to still go shopping. I hope so anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I really do. I think that it's just about being creative and you know, welcoming and encouraging people in to come and spend that time. So let's look forward to times ahead.
To connect with us, log on to terrared.com and we'll see you here next time.